Breaking news today as Donald Trump's name pops up in a Jeffrey Epstein email to his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. Specifically, the email from Epstein says, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." She responds, "I've been thinking about that." The email is marked high in terms of importance. That seems to suggest that she is confirming what he's saying. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too, right? Which sounds like it means that Trump was with the victim. Doesn't say what Trump did with the victim, doesn't say whether Trump broke the law, so who knows? Creepy though. Also sounds like he's talking about going public himself, like I'm 75% there, and Trump's never been mentioned. Why would Trump be mentioned if Trump didn't do anything wrong, right? Put this in the context of Trump is desperately trying to stop the Epstein files from being released. Congress may have the votes now to do it because Grijalva, the representative from Arizona, the Democrat, was sworn in today. She was probably the deciding vote. Trump also held an emergency meeting in the Situation Room, which is the room in the White House they basically use for war, like literal war. Trump did it to talk about this issue to try to convince Lauren Boebert, a Republican congresswoman from Colorado, not to vote in favor of releasing the files. And the final point is, why is Donald Trump so hell-bent on not wanting these files to be released? What's in them? Who's it about? And what does it say? Well, if Donald Trump's trying to stop it from happening, I think you know that answer.
I'm going to read to you one of the email exchanges that was just released between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Jeffrey puts importance high in this email exchange with her. It's on Saturday, April 2nd. 2011, to Ghislaine. "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim," and it's blacked out, there's actually a victim's name underneath that, "spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine responds, "I've been thinking about that." There's a whole nother batch that was released. It was between Jeffrey and somebody else about the dirt that he has on Donald Trump, that Jeffrey can basically blackmail Trump. So you can research that. That was also released in this dump.
John, these are emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times and private correspondence that he had with people, including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff, in a time span of about the last 15 years or so in these emails. Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year. And so they've gotten their hands on a trove of documents. And these are emails that included Jeffrey Epstein on them. They were sent either to him or from him that mentioned Donald Trump before he was in office and also while he was in office during his first term.
So I'm going to give you my take on what I think is happening. I think Democrats are working to manufacture outrage about Donald Trump. I'm not necessarily claiming the emails are false. What I am saying is I think they have an agenda behind what they're doing, and I'm going to kind of explain why I think this and kind of lay out a pattern that's been happening. All right, let's go back in time. Let's think about E. Jean Carroll and how a bunch of people on the left called Trump a rapist, which first off is a lie. So first off, New York went and changed the law. It's called the Adult Survivors Act, and it opened up a 1-year window for civil sexual assault victims to sue even if the statute of limitations had expired. So what E. Jean Carroll was saying happened was in the mid-1990s. So Democrats went back, changed the law, and opened it up to where she could sue him. That's what she did, and then they charged him. So the Democrats manufactured Trump into a racist. Now let's go back to Trump and the hush money thing. You know how he's a felon. So they charged him with falsifying business records in the first degree. But what they did is they elevated a misdemeanor into a felony. And they did that by alleging it was done to conceal another crime, meaning he was falsifying his business records to conceal another crime, and then that allows them to elevate it into a felony. So what do? They do exactly that, and then they convict him of 34 counts, or however many counts it was, and now Trump is a felon. And then during the election, what were they using? Trump is a felon. People still say that he's a felon, he's a rapist. So he's a manufactured rapist, and he's a manufactured felon. Now let's take this to the shutdown. This is the longest shutdown in the history of the country. Well, who was doing it? Democrats. Now pay attention. Let's see if they try to use that as a talking point later. Under Trump, our country had the longest shutdown. Let's see if that happens. They caused it, and then they're going to try to use it as something to blame Trump. Now they're doing the same thing. They're trying to damage his reputation and tie him to Jeffrey Epstein, trying to attach another label to him. The Democratic Party cares more about harming and attacking Donald Trump than they actually care about working for the American people. And that's a problem. But if you pay attention, Democrats create the labels that they want to call Trump, and then they go out there in mass and call him that. Just a reminder, I have a free email newsletter where I give you morning updates and I go into more detail on many of these topics that I talk about. That's a great place to get information from me. The link is in my bio. Just go there, click the link, drop your email in, hit subscribe, and you'll be good to go.
The dog that hasn't barked is Donald Trump. That's what Jeffrey Epstein said in emails to Ghislaine Maxwell that were just released.
But these are emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is one from April 2nd, 2011. And in this email, Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell and says, quote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. There's a name that's redacted, which the House Oversight Committee has said is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's. Obviously, we have not been able to independently confirm that because her name is redacted from this email. But they say redacted spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Ghislaine Maxwell responds to that email, John, and says, quote, "I have been thinking about that." Now, there's no context for that message.
So two people who have been found guilty, all right, of doing unimaginable harm to children confirm that Donald Trump is a dog that has not barked. This is it. There's no more excuses, MAGA. There's no more excuses. What more evidence do you need that Donald Trump, he's not just in the Epstein files, he's in the Epstein files.
Between the two of them. And in another email, this seems to be a reference to Donald Trump saying that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. And Jeffrey Epstein writes to Michael Wolff and says, quote, "Trump said he asked me to resign." And he adds, John, "Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." Now, again, we don't have the context of this email, but John, that comes as in recent months, we've heard President Trump himself and the White House say that Jeffrey Epstein was kicked out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep. Wow. And Trump himself told reporters on Air Force One that he was trying to poach women, he and Ghislaine Maxwell, from the Mar-a-Lago spa. And that was why they had such a falling out and why he ultimately asked Jeffrey Epstein to leave the Mar-a-Lago club. Now, there's also a third email in here, John, and this is, again, in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. And Michael Wolff emails Jeffrey Epstein, and this is back in December 15th, 2015, so the height of the 2016 campaign, just to put that in perspective for you. And it was the day of a CNN Republican primary debate. And Michael Wolff says, quote, "I hear that CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards." And Epstein wrote, "If we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be?" Michael Wolff responded at length, John. I'll summarize it, but he said in regards to Trump, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you can save him generating a debt." Now, I'll note, John, we looked at the transcript of that CNN debate from December 2015. There's no mention of Jeffrey Epstein in there.
Now, what's interesting about all of this has to be the timing of this right here. This means the House Oversight Committee, they've been sitting on this information for a while. And they're now choosing to do this as Congress or the House is set to get, started again after stalling for 7 weeks. This is what Mike Johnson has been trying his hardest to stop, this type of information. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And Donald Trump knows it. Now it's all starting to make sense. Donald Trump, wow. I really don't know what to make. Actually, I know what to make of it. The dog that hasn't barked. That's Epstein validating that Donald Trump is a dog for sure. Just like him, a disgusting, filthy dog. And then you got to ask yourself, why hasn't that dog barked? And what was the victim in, reference? What was the victim doing with Donald Trump all by themselves? make it make sense. But yeah, yeah. It was clear Epstein was able to blackmail Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was paranoid about that. That's why things played out the way they played out in Donald Trump's first term with Epstein. And now we're on the verge of watching him about to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, who that email was sent to. It's like Governor Gavin Newsom has been saying, especially you Trump supporters, wake up. The jig is up. We all know what's going on now. You can't hide it.
Do you guys remember this video?
The victims themselves have stated that this is a lot bigger than I think anyone anticipated. It is very much so a possibility that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset working for our adversaries.
Well, new Epstein files have been released, and there is one email that Jeffrey Epstein sent to the former Prime Minister of Norway, Thorbjorn Jagland. I hope I said that right. Now, I'll show you this email in a minute, but basically, the email shows, in Epstein's own words, that he was working with high-ranking Russian officials and feeding them information about Donald Trump during Trump's first term in 2018. And this email that I'm about to read was written 1 month before Trump and Putin met in the 2018 summit. Here's the email. Epstein, I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov can get insight on talking to me. Vitaly Churkin used to, but he died. Meaning Epstein has a history of providing insight and information on Trump to high-ranking Russian officials. So Jagland responds, I'll meet Lavrov's assistant on Monday and will suggest, meaning obviously I'll pass along your message. And finally, Epstein responds with, Churkin was great. He understood Trump after our conversation. It's not complex. He must be seen to get something. It's that simple. Epstein is the most notorious sex trafficker in the world, and he is a man that weaponized secret recordings to blackmail the rich and powerful. So what exactly was he offering Russia about Donald Trump? That's the question. Come to DC on November 22nd for the Remove the Regime rally. I'm going to be there, and I want to know what you think in person.
Donald Trump is totally panicking about these Jeffrey Epstein emails that have just been released. He just posted this on his own social media platform, Truth Social. He says, in other words, the Democrats are using the Jeffrey Epstein hoax to try and deflect from their massive failures, in particular, their most recent one, the shutdown. Now, many of you know his own social media platform, Truth Social, has a new AI feature that is fact-checking him. So I asked his own AI if what he just said is true. And look at what it says. The short answer is no. There is no evidence that the Jeffrey Epstein hoax is a made-up Democratic plot or that the Democrats are using a hoax to distract from a shutdown. Democrats have been leveraging real documents and emails tied to Epstein to pressure the White House and criticize Trump's reversal on releasing the Epstein files. Wow, getting fact-checked by your own social media platform is next-level diabolical. House Democrats have released and publicized materials related to Epstein's emails, a birthday book, flight logs, and other records obtained from DOJ and Epstein's estate to question Trump's past statements and the White House transparency. These are real documents being used for political scrutiny. Calling them a hoax is unsupported by evidence in the reporting. Wow, his own social media platform is saying this. On the shutdown, reports show Democrats have linked Epstein's releases to ongoing oversight and legislative maneuvering, including timing around House floor action, but there is no substantiated evidence that Epstein-related disclosures were invented to deflect from a shutdown. Rather, they were used to pressure and criticize during the same period. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump freaking out over the Epstein files and his involvement in the emails, and his own social media platform fact-checking him. This is definitely one for the history books.
So huge day. Today, newly released emails from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein reveal that Donald Trump may have known far more about the girls and victims tied to Epstein than he ever admitted, he ever cared to admit. And here's what they say. In April 2011, in that email, Epstein wrote, "The dog that hasn't barked is Trump." Okay? And victims spent hours at my house with him. In 2019 message, the author Michael Wolff, Epstein said he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. And in 2015, Epstein asked Wolff, "If we were able to craft an answer for Trump, what do you think it should be?" Referencing upcoming media questions around Trump and Epstein. These lines can't be ignored. They come from the inner circle of Epstein's network. They suggest Trump was physically present, aware of victims, and even directed interference in Epstein's operations. Yes, these aren't sworn statements, of course, but that's exactly why they matter. They show Epstein's own view of what Trump knew and did. The full context is still emerging. Redactions remain, of course. Names remain hidden, but the pattern is clear. Major questions that demand answers. Okay? Stay tuned for a deeper dive on what the documents show, because that's what I'm going to do on my YouTube. Share your thoughts below. Should Trump be held accountable if these emails are accurate? Tag someone who needs to hear this.
So the Democrats just released emails implicating, once again, Donald Trump in the Epstein saga. He knew what was going on. He was using his services, and Epstein says so in these emails. Now, my question is, are MAGA gonna flip on Trump because of this? I don't think so. They're in too deep. In too fucking deep. Dude, they're paying out the ass for fucking groceries. Groceries. That's an ancient, antique word, groceries. They're paying out the ass for fucking rent, mortgage. They're paying out the ass for fucking insurance. Healthcare insurance premiums are going fucking up through the roof. And they still like sucking Donald Trump's ass. I don't know. You people explain it to me, please. Explain it to me.
Democrats have released never-seen-before emails from Jeffrey Epstein that mention Donald Trump by name several times. The 3 emails released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee raise fresh questions over what President Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's sexual misconduct. In private correspondence with Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011, Epstein called Trump the dog that hasn't barked and alleged that the president spent hours at his house with one of the victims. In another email from 2019, Epstein wrote to author Michael Wolff that Trump of course knew about the girls because he asked Maxwell to stop. Trump has consistently denied any involvement in Epstein's criminal activities, calling the renewed scrutiny a politically motivated hoax.
These files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax.
The emails may intensify pressure on Trump and his administration over the handling of the Epstein files. Both Trump's MAGA base and Democrats have long called for the release of all Epstein files, as they believe the government is withholding the whole truth about the late financier and his elite network of contacts.
This is an issue that matters so much to Americans. This is an issue that doesn't have political boundaries. It's an issue that Republicans and Democrats should never fight about.
Once Arizona Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva is sworn in on Wednesday, Democrats and a handful of Republicans will be able to move forward with a House vote to release all unclassified documents and communications related to the Epstein files.
Her first act, as she's indicated, is going to be to sign that discharge petition. It's going to force a vote on the House floor, and the American people are going to get the transparency that they deserve.